starting, and we are now recording.
Great. Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being flexible and adjusting to this evening's event. We are going to now call the January 17th, 2024 board meeting to order. I'd like to remind everyone to please mute your audio when you're not speaking, as well as state your name prior to making a comment or a motion and a second for an action item. We're going back in time, folks. We're back to the COVID experience minus the COVID. So I guess there's something positive that came out of all that. I'll ask each commissioner to please respond with a here when I call out their name. Commissioner Doan.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Duggan.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. And Commissioner Lysick.
Here.
Fantastic. Thank you. All right. We'll begin this evening with a report from our Chief Executive Officer and the management staff.
Good evening, President Sanders and Commissioners. I want to start with an email that, first of all, let me apologize. This evening's CEO report is going to be rushed together. Some of these things happen just kind of the last minute, and for that I apologize. But last night you should have received an email from me discussing the Metropolitan Policy Advisory Committee vacancy. This is a committee that is part of Metro. It's part of the charter that was adopted in 1992. So that has become vacant for the special district representative for Washington County. So SDAO is facilitating a process for the Washington County special districts to fill that vacancy. The impact, as it's called, it does advise the Metro Council on amendments and adoptions of regional framework plan and other matters specified in the Metro Charter. If you have questions about that, we have Clark Balfour that can help us out to get into the details. I'm sure many of you are aware of impact and what it does. It meets monthly, usually the last Wednesday of the month at 5 p.m. So the SDO has proposed a process, and here are the key steps in the process they have to filling the vacancy. First, they will host a meeting on September 20th at 10 a.m. to select the representatives. So there will be a vote to do that. The representatives on the impact must be an elected member of a special district within Washington County. So it's limited to the 5 of you from TVWD to actually serve on impact. Each interested individual will give a short 5-minute presentation on why they are qualified and interested, and that would be at that February 21st meeting. Each special district attending will have 1 vote. Not everybody has to attend, but if we do attend, there will be 1 vote. The nominees receiving the greatest number of votes will be the special district representative to impact for Washington County. The nominee receiving the second most votes will have the option to serve as the alternate. So there are a couple questions for the board, and we can do this either tonight or, as I indicated in my email last night, we could do this at a special meeting on February the 6th. But the first question is a TVWD board member interested in the impact position vacancy? Now, we can have more than 1 board member from TVWD who can seek the position. But if you are interested, then according to the SDO process, I'm to submit your name to the SDO. The second question is, do commissioners wish to appoint a representative to vote at the February 21st meeting? As I indicated in my email to you, I think that's probably the best course of action for you to make a decision on who you wish to cast the vote on behalf of the district. The person casting that vote, it could be one of you, or you could appoint a staff member if that's your choice. If we are going to be making a decision, then we can amend the agenda tonight and actually have an item to make that delegation for the vote, or we could hold it over and you can direct us to have a special meeting on the 6th. The key thing is that the nominations are due by January 31st. The meeting is at 10 a.m. the morning of our next regular board meeting. So if you want to act, we either need to do it tonight as part of this regular meeting after amending the agenda, or we could do that as a special meeting during the same time frame that we have the scheduled work session on February the 6th. So that, Mr. Balfour, did I miss anything? Is there more to add?
No, I think you've got it. I think the only thing I would add is, so it's special districts in Washington County within the metro boundary. So that essentially amounts to about 8 or 9 special districts. There's Tualatin Hills Park and Rec, there's Clean Water Services, the various water districts. So West Slope, Raleigh, maybe Valley View, they might have some space in Washington County. A couple of fire districts and an aquatic district. So anyway, all those folks got the same notice. And so there'll be about 8, 9, or 10 districts in attendance on that February 21st date to cast votes. And as Paul said, some may choose not to send a delegate and vote, but it could be as high as that many.
And one other thing, Clark, that you reminded me of, actually Doug Menke from Tualatin Hills Park Recreation District, he and I have been in contact. Apparently THPRD has a member of the board that would really like to serve on Impact. I'm not sure that that should matter to you all, but I thought I would share that with you as you consider this matter.
Clark, this is Todd Sanders. Can you give us from your perspective, the value of this board position in general and perhaps relative to TVWD? And also if
Sure.
Paul could repeat when the monthly meetings are or when the meetings are held, the day and time.
Paul, why don't you go first on the meetings?
The meetings are typically on the last Wednesday of the month.
Yeah.
And the time?
I believe it was 5 o'clock.
5 p.m.
Yeah, it is. It's 5 and typically, unless they do something virtual, it's at the Metro offices downtown.
Metro downtown Portland.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the east side of there.
So the history of this is it arises out of the Metro Charter, and it arises out of probably, well, some things certainly that Commissioners Duggan and Doan will remember. 20 to 25 years ago, there were a lot of issues about, well, we're back to the same old thing, urban service boundaries, that sort of thing. And there was a real, there was a push by Portland at that point where Portland essentially cast a net out to Oak Hills and said, this is our ultimate area that we wish to provide service to. So that got people a little bit excited, and then Metro got involved. And this was about the time that the Metro Charter was being formulated, because if you remember, Metro was originally created by statute, and then they got the authority to have a charter. So they drafted a charter. And one of the provisions that was put in that charter was that there would be this Metropolitan Advisory Committee consisting of each county, the largest city in each county, and then another city in each county, various citizen representatives, and then a special district rep from each of the 3 counties. And the Impact Charter vested that committee with essentially an advisory role, but a role that in certain topics that were of import concerning urban growth boundary, whether or not Metro could provide certain services, that MPAC had to approve, that it was to be a collaborative process where local governments would be able to, in a way, check Metro authority if they were trying to overreach. Overreach from, I guess, our perspective, maybe not from Metro's perspective, but in any event, that was it. So MPAC was kind of important at the time, and it was particularly important on at that point, Metro was developing its regional framework plan and the regional urban growth goals and objectives, and and revisions to the urban growth boundary. So a whole lot of things that that had a impact on a lot of things that local government was interested in, particularly in the provision of services, roads, sewer, water, all those kinds of things. So it was important. And let me tell you the other thing, the reason for MPAC is, there are restrictions on Metro's ability to provide services, right? I mean, Metro does the zoo and they do garbage and they do some other things, but if Metro wants to get in and provide other services already provided by other units of local government, that they either have to get a vote of the people in the entire metro area, or they've got to get the approval of MPAC. So MPAC was also seen as a place to backstop Metro trying to get into the water business, for example, or into wastewater or anything like that. So that was the original importance of the whole thing. And I still think it has relevance today, but their focus shifts. So I think this may be the question that you need to answer. At the time that we started MPAC and all that, the question was urban service boundaries, essentially having a line of ultimate service provision by Portland at the county line, the Multnomah Washington County line, and that's essentially where it's been fixed. Well, holding that line was important to fire district, well, to everybody, but in particular the fire district. So the initial representative on MPAC from Washington County was one of my former fire board colleagues, Carol Guerin. And so she served for a while. I served for a while as a representative of the fire district on MPAC. And then because we were starting to shift from the urban service boundary issues and some of those things to some of the land use planning stuff. Marilyn McWilliams was a member of MPAC for, I'm not sure exactly, but I think it was a 4-year stint. And because at that point we were, Marilyn certainly had an interest, as she always did, but then there were some specific issues related to water and other urban service provisions that she wanted to be involved with. Then it went back to the fire district, a person named Gordon Hovey's, and that the fire district essentially was interested at that point because Metro was starting to talk about the regional transportation plan, and with that was the whole concept of light rail to Tigard, and so how light rail was going to come down Barber, how it was going to go over the hill, come into Tigard, which way it was going to go. And the fire district was very concerned from the standpoint of how do we make sure that we maintain access for emergency vehicles. So that was the impetus there. Now, the focus of Metro is obviously many areas, but they're wrestling with housing and affordability of housing, and that also means what happens in public places. With houselessness issues and those sorts of things, right? And so what you see now is, I think that's probably one of the main reasons why the Park District is particularly interested in being part of those discussions, because that's something that they're involved with on a daily basis. So I think that's part of the impetus to call for a new meeting for the fire district person at TBF&R to step aside and then to open it up. And that's why you see Doug Minke saying, yes, the Park District has some interest. So is there an interest for us? I'm sure there is. I think that it's still a relevant thing to serve on. And I think it's just a matter of trying to balance, which special district has the most to consider in the next few years of discussion. And I guess the only thing I would add to that is, so for example, if you thought that the Park District maybe should be the lead, certainly, we could put ourselves in to be the alternate, just so we could keep our hand in. So anyway, I think that's my spiel on it, and I hope I didn't bore you too much.
And by the way, just apologies, this email literally came yesterday. We didn't have a heads up that it was coming. We would much prefer to have had this in the board packet, had a conversation with you as opposed to spring it on you as an email the night before board meeting. So this is not ideal, but yet we think it's something that if you have an interest, we want to take action relatively quickly.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Washington County. I'm looking at the full roster right now. It's a very large committee. There are a lot of people that serve on this from Washington, Multnomah, and Clackamas County.
I think it calls for a committee of 21. So now I will say this, it does provide a pretty good networking opportunity.
Yeah.
To meet leaders from all over the metro area and particularly from the county. And, you know, the as I understand it, the Washington County folks, you know, county, city, and then the special district rep get together at least once a month in advance of the meeting that comes up and try to compare notes on, you know, are there common issues, and are there ways that, you know, we can cooperate together. So it does have some real value, I think, from that standpoint.
Commissioner Duggan, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Clark, for the background. I would just like to probe a little bit more if you know about why Gordon Hovey's stepped down. Is it that the fire district really isn't all that interested and the park district really is, and that there have been behind the scenes discussion on a particular person from the park district board that has that interest, or is it had gotten that specific? I'm just curious from a background, because it just seems kind of sudden here in the last month that the fire district would step down from that position right now.
I think that I think Gordon would like to continue serving, and he may put himself, he may nominate himself, I don't know. But the fire district board, the remainder of the fire district board, thought that we'd had it long enough, and that issues were more concerning to other districts, and that it was time as the fire district that we should step back from being in that position. So we took a vote on that the other day, and that is part of what initiated this process. I don't think Gordon's willing to relinquish, but that was what the remainder of the board thought.
And was there anyone on the park district board in particular that had the interest in stepping up and doing that? Do you know?
I don't know. I think that was a conversation that Paul may have had with Doug Minke.
Yeah, Doug did not offer a name. He just indicated that they did have a member of the board that was very interested. I didn't ask a name either.
Again, just idle curiosity.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? Does anybody have any interest in this role? Okay, that's
Well,
really
hearing
quiet.
none other, I have a, excuse me, I have a minor interest in possibly being an alternate. I don't want to get in the way of the park district with their burning issue on the much more timely and urgent problems associated with the homeless and other uses of parks, including the trespass and liability and things like that. However, I spent a good deal of my life hearing about discussions that impact through Maryland, but mostly as a result of my employment in spending a lot of time with the city planners at Beaverton. And therefore, I do have an interest. I think I could serve. But then again, it's not a burning interest because I don't think that MPAC deals with a lot of stuff that we, as a water district, and things that I could contribute on would be beneficial to to be an active member all the time. I wouldn't mind being designated as an alternate though, or representing the board and voting at the meeting on February 21st, earlier in the day from our February meeting next month.
Clark, you had a comment?
I just wanted to add that I chose some of the uses of public places and houselessness, homelessness issues as one example. The park district also interfaces with Metro on the regional park system as well as their own park system. So, I mean, they have broader interest than maybe what I led you to believe. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Thank you for that clarification, Clark. But that all those things are true, and that makes any desire that I have be tempered with thinking that they would be a much more actively involved and much more productive member of Impact than anyone of us from the Water District would be. Not that we wouldn't have anything to add. It's just that I think on the timeliness and coordination issue, the Park District seems better aligned at this time, and probably for most times than we would.
Okay. Any other thoughts from anybody? Okay. Well then, I don't know if we need to, Clark, you can give us advice. I don't know if we need to amend our agenda tonight, but it looks as though we have a volunteer to appoint himself. I guess he is volunteered to vote at the February 21st meeting, as well as perhaps volunteer as the alternate on the MPAC committee. Is that redundant saying MPAC committee? Yes, the MPA committee, to be a volunteer on the MPA committee if so desired by the other members of the SDAO. And I'm going to share a thought that I think what we're seeing from or hearing from Commissioner Duggan is that if the Parks District has made the effort to come tell Paul that they have an interested party, that out of good SDAO relationships, then perhaps what we should do is stand back and allow them to seek this position and be supportive of their desire to have the role at this time. So unless anyone has any opposition to that, do we have to vote to send Commissioner Duggan in, or is it good enough to just to say Commissioner Duggan will represent TVWD at the February 21st meeting at 10 a.m. With the SDAO MPA committee meeting selection?
I think you should do it by motion, just
Okay.
pretty much the way you said it. And I think you can just make that motion now. I don't think you need to necessarily amend the agenda to make it a business item. I think, I mean, Sam will capture this in the minutes as a motion made as part of a longer discussion. And so you can do it now if you want.
Very good. So can I have a motion and a second to select Commissioner Duggan to represent TVWD at the February 21st SDAO meeting for the vacant MPA commission position?
This is Jim Doan, and so moved.
This is Commissioner Fisher. I second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Not hearing any, the motion passes. Thank you, Commissioner Duggan, for volunteering to at the very minimum, you're going to be attending the meeting. You may end up finding that you're now attending every MPAC meeting at the corner. I looked it up, at the corner of 84 and I-5, right there across from Benson High.
Yeah, I know the building well, but from what I understand, there's still MPAC is still meeting on Zoom. I don't think they've gone to in-person or even hybrid meetings yet, but I'll check that out before I make any commitments. That's for sure. The one thing I do ask a staff is could I have a staff member also attend to babysit me and rein me in, or to point out when I need to stifle myself? Not, not that I want to waste a staff member's time, but I think it would be good to have a staff member there at the meeting, just to report back in a fashion that is less biased than just my brain alone. And I think it would be good to do it. Paul, I don't expect you to be there, but if you could appoint one of your very talented staff members to sit in with me at that meeting on the 21st, 10 o'clock, I'd appreciate it.
You bet. We'll coordinate internally to get you the right person. Also reach out to Doug Menke as well, and just give him a sense of what you discussed tonight, so that the Park District will have an idea of what's going on. So we'll put something together, and Commissioner Duggan, I'll be in touch with you, identifying the staff member that will participate with you.
Excellent. Thank you.
You need someone to tug you and tell you to sit back down. Sit down, Commissioner Duggan. Marvelous. All right. Well, thank you very much, Commissioner Duggan. We'll move forward from here, Paul.
Yes. So, as we were putting together the announcements, the CEO announcements for tonight, I thought it was going to be pretty thin. And then a couple of things came up. The one that we just spent time on. The one thing that I thought we would talk about would be the Washington County Supply Line. I didn't expect that we'd be talking about the severe weather event, but Pete Boone is here, and I've asked Pete to pull together some information and present it to you here. We'll turn it over to Pete in just a moment, but I do want to just highlight how interesting and exciting it was really to work with the team as they dealt with this weather emergency. It was the side of the organization I've spent the least amount of time with, given my history of coming from the finance side. I try to stay out of their way, but they do some really interesting work. And just to see the enthusiasm that they bring to serving our customers and our communities, it was really exciting. And I thought this would be a great opportunity for Pete to, oh, by the way, Pete was in the middle of it as well. He is one of those people that was present, leading right there with the team. So kudos to Pete and his team. Pete, do you want to take it over and highlight these interesting pictures and phenomena we have shared with the board tonight?
Yeah, so as you might recall, we're in the midst of a big operation here to connect the Willamette water supply system to the Washington County supply line. So this is the MPE pipeline connection. So the Washington County supply line has been taken offline. That was done about a month and a half ago to prepare for this. It was drained and it was cut open here recently. And the picture on the left you see is Matt Duffy, one of the engineers on the Willamette program, who's inside that pipeline, taking a look at what's going on inside there, since nobody's got to see the inside of this since, I believe, 1981 when it was installed. So Matt Duffy and our own Nick Augustus made entry to that to do some work and gather some data. They found really good things. They found a lot of good news when they did that. So we're feeling really good about the condition of that pipeline. And when it was cut open, we had the opportunity to bring a piece of that back here to the yard so that we could do further analysis. And while it was here, Commissioner Doan was here for a meeting. And so he was able to go outside and look at that. And we actually found video from the groundbreaking or the ceremony when that pipeline was brought online in the 1980s. And Commissioner Doan is in that video from his time working for the Water Bureau. So pretty cool piece of history there that he was able to see that and was able to give us some of the history around that asset. It's a big important pipeline to the county. So
The only thing I'd add is that in the video, I had hair. It's embarrassing to see myself 40 years ago. So, but anyway, the pipe's in good shape.
Yes, it is. So we were pleased with that, and the work to connect that system out there is well underway, and they're making good progress. So we're happy about that.
Let me just throw one comment that I'm sorry, Pete, for interrupting, but So we were finishing the GWC meeting and Commissioner Doan was on campus here. We thought, what a great opportunity to take him out there. Pete also had a piece of the gasket. And this, Commissioner, I'm going to embarrass you here. I've asked for your forgiveness as I do this, but Pete presented this to Commissioner Doan and he immediately smelled it, which I had never thought of doing, and he handed it to us and smelled it. Sure enough, that gasket had the smell of an unused gasket. It was amazing. It looked like Commissioner Doan was like, well, of course you just do this. So it was amazing from my perspective just to see that happen in real time. So it was one of those memories I'm going to take with me for quite some time. Anyways, Pete, sorry for the interruption.
All right, moving on. So like Paul previewed a little bit, we're going to talk about the ongoing response to the severe weather. We recognize, so this storm had a lot of impacts and they varied in intensity across the district, but our customers on the north side of our district, so north of Highway 26 and also over in Metzger, were really impacted by this storm. Lots of trees down, lots of damage from the wind. At the same time, there's freezing temperatures. So we really sympathize with those folks who've been impacted by this. But we wanted to walk you through what those impacts have been to TBWD and how we've responded. And this is really a good news story. So our people and our system has responded really well. The response has included staff from across the entire organization. This isn't just, any one group of folks. I just get to be the lucky one tonight to talk through what we've done so far. So as you might expect, we had a big increase in calls for service from our customers over the weekend. So we'll talk about that. We experienced power outages ourselves. So some of our pumping facilities lost power and had to run on generators. We lost communication with a lot of our SCADA network. So that's the computer system that handles a lot of automation and monitoring for our water system. We had to make some dramatic changes to supply in the middle of this event. I'll talk about how that was accomplished by the team. Big increase in emergency locate requests. So anytime any utility or contractor has to dig in the ground, they have to call for locates. And since there was so much damage, there was a lot of other utilities having to do a lot of work up north and in Metzger to make repairs. As you might imagine and have probably experienced, it was very difficult to get around. There was a lot of snow and ice, a lot of trees down, roads blocked entirely. So we can talk about that. And we lost one of our main internet connections here at TBWD headquarters. So that impacted some of our systems. We rely on franchise utilities, just like most of you all do in your lives to bring us internet connections. And Tim Boylan's team has a really robust system. But we can only control what we can control, and we lost one of those connections from an outside provider. Tim will talk about that later. And we've also tried to work really closely with TBF&R, and I think we've made some really good progress on that front to help them respond. Because a lot of times when folks are experiencing an emergency at their home, like a burst pipe, their first instinct is to call 911. And so the WACA, our 911 dispatch center, was receiving a lot of leak calls and having to dispatch fire resources. So we'll talk about that, but we always encourage our customers to call us first with leaks, and we're going to respond very quickly, not with lights and sirens, but we're going to take those calls seriously, and we were staffed up to do that. So we'll jump right in here. So our customer service calls. So again, this storm hit us over the weekend. And so anytime over the weekend, on nights and holidays, we have what we call our duty operators that are responding to customer calls and handling those emergencies. We typically staff our duty with 3 different people, and they kind of have 3 different distinct roles. And so that customer service duty role for most of the year on nights and weekends is handled by one person. So they're receiving calls from our after hours answering service. They're triaging those, they're reaching out to customers, and they're handling the field response on their own and taking care of those needs in the field. A typical week of duty, we do a weekly rotation. An operator might only have a half a dozen calls. A busy duty cycle might be 40 calls. And we handled over 200 calls from Friday through Monday. Remember, Monday was a holiday. So we were prepared for this. We expected to see an increase in call volume. And so we had a plan to upstaff as that call volume increased. And we changed operational modes. So we We implemented a dispatcher who was sending out multiple crews of people. We had those people operating in pairs for safety. So we had 2 operators in a vehicle responding to those calls. And so we were able to scale up and handle that and keep our response times really good through the whole event. The event's not over. We've been busy. So last night we had an additional 47 calls. And then during the daytime this week, there's been a lot of action going on across the district. So just a lot of calls, and that's primarily Andrew Carlstrom's group. He actually had to leave the meeting tonight. His own home was impacted by this event, and so he's working on sorting that out. But his team was really taking the lead on these responses to customer issues. And we do that with a mix of technology. So here's a photo I took kind of in the middle of it. I believe this was Sunday afternoon at really a peak time in this, where we were getting basically nonstop calls to that duty phone. So that's Chris Johnson. He's our field customer service supervisor. He's handling all those calls. He's talking to those customers, and he's dispatching crews to go and mitigate those issues in the field. So that what you see on the whiteboard is kind of our running list of calls and who we have on staff. What you see, so kind of the old school method, right? Just you track it on the whiteboard and you erase as you go and you make changes. But we mix that with some new technology. So earlier this year, we implemented a fleet telematics program. So those are GPS transponders in all of our vehicles. So we're able to track location real time of where our crews are, see who's closest to a call, and be able to route folks like that. So that worked really effectively. We're going to continue to build on that and integrate that with some of our other systems to hopefully make this even more effective in the future. All right, so we lost power at a couple of sites. Again, mostly the north part of our district was impacted by this. So, and I know you don't have a map in front of you to see where all of these locations are, but they are primarily close to 26 or north of 26, and also over in Metzger. So the district has invested in resiliency for the last 40, 50 years, and that includes adding standby power generators at all of our pumping facilities. And those worked really well. So they all started automatically like they're supposed to. You can see the run times on some of those generators. And so we were never impacted on our ability to deliver water across the system, thanks to those generators and the folks that keep those maintained. The picture you see there is Joe Boston. He's one of our fleet mechanics. And what he's doing is hooking up the winch to our service truck, which carries 100 gallons of diesel. And Joe and various partners throughout the weekend delivered over 1,000 gallons of diesel to each of these generator sites over the past 4 or 5 days. So really great work by that team to keep those things functioning and keep the power going to those pumps. We also experienced some pretty major impacts to our SCADA system. So again, that's the automation and monitoring software that we use to run our system. And so that creates some challenges for our operators. And again, a lot of these outages were on copper telephone lines, fiber optic lines that are owned and operated by the different franchised utilities. And they were impacted by power outages and other things as well. So we've got a wide-ranging project underway to improve our SCADA communications. We're going to be implementing the AT&T FirstNet cellular system through a secure APN. It's a way to keep that very secure, but to use that cellular network. And we've already got some sites that are on it. All of those ones remained in contact, so we're really excited about getting the rest of our system implemented with that. But for now, we had to manage through some SCADA outages and go old school, where you drive from site to site and make sure that things are operating correctly. So the team did a really good job of keeping up on that. The screen you see there is part of that SCADA system, and anywhere you see red, I mean, something bad is happening. Either we've got a comms fail or a pump is having an issue there. So we saw lots of red on the screen throughout the weekend, but still, again, no wide-ranging system impacts from that. All right, so we had to make some pretty big moves on the supply front, and we were expecting this, or we were prepared for this, because Portland reached out to us when we shut down the Washington County supply line, and we shifted to what we call the back down system, where water comes up and over Sylvan Hill. Portland let us know that there's a little bit less resiliency on that system because they have to pump that water versus the Washington County supply line that comes to us via gravity from Powell Butte. So they warned us, hey, if we have a power outage in our pumping system, we might have to have you slow down on the amount of water you're taking. Well, that happened on Saturday. And so we were in contact with the control center at the Water Bureau. They let us know they were having the issue. And we've been taking quite a bit of water from them. And so we were draining their storage pretty quickly. And they asked us to slow down the flows. The picture you see here is Ron Kemper. He's one of our operators. And he actually was a really big part of designing that back down system. So it just so happened that he was on the duty this weekend. We had some veteran duty operators, and that was a huge help. So Ron actually slowed that system down manually without the assistance of SCADA. And I happened to be riding with him that day, so I got a front row seat to watch him work his magic. Did a great job, got it slowed down, got it shut down, and then called our partners out at the JWC. We'd also been in previous conversations with them about this possible scenario, and so they were ready to deliver us more water. And so we really appreciate the support from all those partners, the cities of Hillsborough, Beaverton, Forest Grove, in allowing us to take some extra water from the JWC to keep our supply situation whole. So just graphically how that looked, here you can see a map of our system and the flows in MGD, or millions of gallons per day, that we were taking from each of those supply points. So from the west, from the JWC, we had 7 MGD coming in before this event, and also the same 7 MGD coming from Portland through the back down system, as well as our 1 to 1.5 MGD going to Metzger that was still able to come down the Washington County supply line. So when we shut down the back down system, we still serve Metzger from Portland through that Washington County supply line, but we shifted the majority of our demand to the JWC, and they were able to meet that immediately when we needed it. Locates. So like I said earlier, anytime a utility or a contractor needs to dig, or even a homeowner is going to do some work, they need to call 811 to call for locates. And if that's an emergency, if they've got to dig right away, there's a mechanism for them to request an emergency locate, where we need to get out there within 2 hours and get marks on the ground to mark where our pipes are under the ground. So on Saturday, every one of our emergency tickets was for Northwest Natural. Their system was heavily impacted again on the north side of the district. A lot of that from when trees would tip over, that root ball would rip gas lines and water lines and all kinds of things out of the ground. And so we were working closely with Northwest Natural to try to keep them going. One of those actually went down with a power line and started a gas-fed fire that burned for a very long time on Laidlaw Road. And so there was quite the response that involved TVFNR and PGE and Northwest Natural, everybody trying to work together to mitigate that problem and restore gas service to the area. Because remember, the temperatures were super low. And so there was a lot of concern for folks that were in their homes without power, without gas, and no heat. And the trees themselves obviously present challenges for getting around. So we had a lot of trees on roadways, a lot of trees into homes. Unfortunately, I saw more trees into homes than I had ever seen before from any kind of storm. Some of it just looked like tornado damage that you see on the national news. So a lot of challenges from that. Some of these trees were from our properties onto neighboring properties and causing damage. So we were trying to work with our neighbors to mitigate that. The picture on the right that you see there, the very large tree, that is from a property that we own for a future reservoir site. So we don't have any assets there now, but we still have a responsibility to be good neighbors. And so when that tree went down, it blocked the driveway that accesses 3 different homes. And so as you can imagine, the tree services were just swamped with calls. We were trying to get somebody out to safely remove that tree. And also, frankly, preparing to do it ourselves if we had to. And that was our plan on Monday. If we just couldn't get anyone professionally to do it. We've got folks on staff that are very competent in tree removal, and we were making a plan to get up there, but one of our tree vendors was able to get out and take care of us there and got those folks access. Another picture, this is our Florence Lane pump station over in Metzger. Luckily, no damage from any of these trees onto our facilities. It'll just be a cleanup effort when things settle down. And some things you might not expect. So, you think it's hard enough to drive to a site around trees and through the snow and ice, and you get there and the locks are frozen. So we spent, all of our facilities are secure and they're locked up, which is good. But they were very secure on Saturday and Sunday. So, we went through a lot of propane, just unthawing, door locks, padlocks on gates, different things, just so we could get in and out. And in some instances, they would refreeze. So we'd open a padlock to get in the gate, and we were at a site for 20 minutes checking things out. You go to leave and the thing's locked open now, and you have to thaw it out just to lock it up when you leave. And then this is something we've been trying to do, and I think we made a lot of progress actually today and through this event. So coordinating with TVF&R and our other 911 first responders. So like I mentioned earlier, a lot of customers, when they're seeing a leak and flooding in their home, they get upset and they want an immediate response, and they're trained. We're all trained throughout our lives to call 911 if you have a big problem. And a lot of folks were doing that, and it was really flooding a lot of calls into the dispatch center. And so we were trying to coordinate closely with them throughout this to take some of those calls and not have to commit a fire asset to them, try to keep the fire department ready to respond to fires and medical emergencies. And so today we've been talking to TVF&R throughout the weekend, but today I actually went down and worked directly with them in their emergency operations center. And we were coordinating closely with the dispatch and trying to route these calls, not only to us, but TVF&R has such a large service area that they interface with about a dozen different water providers across their whole district. And so I reached out directly to a lot of those water providers, got up-to-date direct contact numbers for their on-call personnel. So we were able to route calls directly to, a city or a different district if there was a water problem that could be handled by them instead of the fire department. So we figured this out as we went. We learned a lot today, and I think we put together a really good system that we'll be able to implement in the future and try to keep them to be able to focus on other calls. So with that, are there any questions that I can provide? I guess I'll just end by saying I'm really proud of our folks across the district, all of our staff who stepped up for this event, taking care of our customers. And it's just amazing to get to work alongside these folks and watch them in action.
Totally concur. Any questions for Pete? It was really exciting to watch and be part of, frankly. Well, if there are no further questions, thank you, Pete, for pulling this together for us tonight as well. I'm going to turn over to Tim Boylan, who's going to present tonight's department report, and maybe Tim can talk about some of our other IT challenges that were storm related. Tim?
All right. Can you hear me okay? I switched audio inputs here. I just want to make sure.
We're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my slides will not be nearly as exciting as Pete's. But what I wanted to do tonight is just get everybody a little bit of an update on our roadmap and our progress against that roadmap. Talk a little bit about what's going on, and then a little bit of a look forward into what's coming from an IT perspective. So when I started with the district in late 2017, we spent most of 2018 really focused on getting the district's employees up to date with some of their technologies. Then we realized we really had a need to set a solid roadmap in place so we could progress from where we were and meet some of the district's evolving needs. So the principles we put together for the 19 to 21 biennium and beyond were to be able to support a flexible and changing workforce, to be able to focus on purchasing technologies and integrating them versus building them from scratch. So that's avoiding homegrown software development and really focusing on commercial products to give us some more resilience and flexibility. We adopted a cloud-first strategy where possible. So when we bring on a new technology, if there's a cloud option, we evaluate the fit of that first before we try and bring it into our data center. And that reads right into security and resilience. So the purchase and integrate and the cloud-first strategy is really based around the concept that a larger provider, a software vendor, or a technology provider has many more resources to throw at things like security and resilience than we do. So we focus on buying best of breed and integrating those. And when we do that, we leverage better service levels, we leverage better technology evolution over time, and we leverage the ability to refocus our staff on things going on within the district, not just trying to keep up with the ever-evolving technology landscape. And then finally, our roadmap has us focused more on data and outcomes than the build and maintenance of key systems. So we're evolving away from a build and maintain to an enable and maintain kind of strategy. So we divided up our roadmap into where we do little chunks over each biennium. And for the 19 to 21 biennium was really around service improvement. So this is the time period where we did things like implemented a new help desk platform and self-help portal. We changed how we deliver IT services to the district. That's enabling things like different business process support mechanisms, how we track tickets, how we work with our vendors, things of that nature. The increase in flexibility was really around when we developed this, most of the district were still using desktop computers, and we were using an outdated phone system, and we were hardwired into all of the outlets in the district. And we thought it was a good idea to give employees more flexibility. And one of the concepts was, let's get everybody laptops. Let's invest in more signs in conference rooms and the boardroom, things of that nature. And we wanted to give employees the flexibility to, one of the things that always struck me as odd is we had so many people using desktops. People were still taking notes on pen and paper in 2018 because they didn't have a laptop with them that they could take to a meeting. So really in 2019, that's when we started the evolution of giving folks mobile phones, laptops, a little more flexibility in the technology they use day to day. And then, of course, the CIS project was in its early stages, and that was a key focus area. Then in the 21 to 23 period, it was really focused on updating IT processes, retiring old legacy applications, and we retired a handful, including things like utility billing, our old performance management system, and a couple other key apps, and we replaced those with commercial options. This is also where we started making changes to the IT staff. We brought on our first business analyst in this time frame, who's largely focused on CityWorks and field work order processes. And then we also brought on our first data analyst this last year to focus really more on the district's data reporting and business intelligence needs. So this is the beginning of our evolution away from software development into more customer-focused activities and projects. So what's coming in 23 to 25, our focus is more on data, cybersecurity, and resiliency. So this will be things like the technology refresh we're currently focused on and working toward, building better data quality and reporting services out of all of these new systems that we've put in place, building upon our cybersecurity foundation to give us even more capabilities for detection and remediation of threats as they evolve. And then this is also where we're going to start ramping even more into heavy WWSS activities related to building out the technology as the treatment plant gets constructed. So this was the plan. A couple things happened along the way. We had a little bit of a speed bump with COVID. So some of the plans got changed and adjusted. So we really focused starting in 2020 on getting remote workers set up and out the door. We replaced the phone system and the contact center. And then as the CIS project evolved, we had to throw some resources at making sure that system integrations were working well, that processes were working. Data reporting took a whole new flavor now that we're reporting out of a commercial system as opposed to a homegrown system. And then we took on some additional ad hoc projects, things like implementing our NeoGov system for HR, a big upgrade to GIS, implemented and participated in the water quality software project, and a whole portfolio of other things. So we're still tracking to our goals with the roadmap, but thankfully the team's been able to flex and also take on these other ad hoc projects as they come up and become priorities. So one of the things I'm planning to do for January 2024 in the month in review report was to start reporting on more service levels about what IT is doing. So we've set up monitoring within the network to keep track of how often the network's up, how often our key applications up, what we're doing with help desk tickets, and a portfolio of other metrics. So one little disclaimer, we pulled this slide last week before the cold weather event. And of course, the network metrics, we had been 100% up for the entire month of December into January. And then as soon as I put this in the slide deck, we had a circuit go down over the weekend with the ice storm. So Paul mentioned that I could speak a little to what happened with IT systems over the this last weekend. So the only significant issue that we had is that we have an internet circuit through Lumen, which was formerly CenturyLink, and we have two main internet circuits at the office. And one of those went down because Lumen experienced PGE power failure at 19 of their network locations. And so we are in that loop. And when PGE went down for our network provider, they went down for us. So we've got a backup circuit. So anybody working in the office or working at home on things like Microsoft Teams or email or things of that nature, there was no impact. What it did impact was our ability to connect to Open SmartFlex and to the WWSP office. So the team spent the first day of the storm reconfiguring those connections to work on our backup circuit, and we got everybody back up and working. The technology refresh that we're focused on right now, if this storm would have happened in about 6 months, it would have been a non-issue for IT. One of the things that we're refreshing is the technology that connects us to the internet so that we can have multiple circuits and they will balance themselves automatically without intervention. So even if one provider has a problem, we still maintain connectivity. So we're on track to wrap that up probably within about 6 months. And then we'll be a little more resilient and a little more flexible with things like bad weather events or natural disasters. As far as the other systems, our servers and our storage and our backup and recovery all worked as expected. No other technology issues that we really had to focus on. So our goal was really to try and support the teams that were in the field and making sure that the folks who were doing the hard work of keeping the water running had the tools they need to get their job done. So I'm pleased to report that there were not any other real significant challenges for us. And then finally, what I wanted to do is just give a little bit of a preview of some of the stuff that we're working on in initiatives and projects. So like I mentioned, the two big initiatives that you'll get recurring updates on are our technology refresh and our reporting foundation initiatives. And the technology refresh, we're going to be replacing our servers, storage, and backup systems. We're going to be replacing our firewall and the technology at our network perimeter, as well as our office network and our Wi-Fi. And the goal is to get us to a next generation that'll last us for the next 4 to 6 years and give us the flexibility to add and remove services as we need to, with a little more reasonable cost profile and a little more flexibility. Then the reporting foundation is the first of a two-step process. We ultimately want to get to a really robust business intelligence program where we can actually leverage the district's data to make really good decisions and to do modeling and to do forward-looking planning and things of that nature. What we need to begin with, though, is a really solid grasp of all of our current reporting needs and our data sources. And then we have pain points with those current data feeds that we need to make sure that we solve for departments, whether that's reports that don't quite contain the data they need, or they're hard to work with, or they're too complex to get to. So right now, what we're going to focus on for this biennium is getting an inventory of our data sources and reporting all dialed in, addressing those pain points, and then creating a technology infrastructure so in the next biennium we can evolve that into more of a full-fledged business intelligence initiative. And then finally, I just wanted to highlight a couple regional collaboration things that the IT group is working on. We had our first meeting with Hillsborough IT to start working on what the technology stack at the treatment plant's going to look like. It was a very good meeting, was really collaborative and a really positive experience working with our counterpoints at Hillsborough. Last year, we implemented a radio system pilot with Clean Water Services, where we allowed them to place some gear into our Radio Shack to expand their range, and vice versa. They're going to allow us to leverage their radio towers to expand our range the other direction. So we're essentially sharing capacity on both radio systems in order to give us both expansion of our footprint as well as the ability to work more collaboratively with others in the region. This also gives us the ability to use our radios to talk with other entities like Tualatin Valley Fire, or we could even tap into police and emergency services if we need to in an emergency. And speaking of that, the emergency planning folks at City of Beaverton caught wind of what we were doing with the radio, and they reached out to us, and they'd like to talk about doing a pilot similar to Clean Water Services, where they could co-locate some of their equipment at our Radio Shack, and then give us cross connection into their radio infrastructure as well. So we're in early planning discussions with them to see what that would look like. But they've all been very collaborative, and it's all been a very positive working relationship with all these folks. So we'll keep you up to date as these discussions continue to move forward. And that was all I was going to cover today. Can I answer any questions?
Marvelous, Tim. Just marvelous.
All right, I'll turn it back over.
With that, that concludes the CEO management report for today. Back to you, President Sanders.
Great, thank you. So Tim, your plans are just so impressive. We're so lucky to have you as part of the team now. Although it's been a while, you've been here a while now, Tim. But you know, your impact just continues to be very impressive. So we're very fortunate to have you as a member of the team.
Thank you. I had one of my team members point out I can no longer call myself the new guy. That's not allowed.
I agree. But what you can't say is I'm leaving. So.
No, this is, I don't know if I'll take just a second here. I grew up in Beaverton, just off Walker Road. So I grew up just up the road. So I've been a consumer of the water in this area since I was born. And one of the drivers for me to be interested in this position is I actually had to call customer service with a question about my water bill before I was an employee. And I had just an amazing experience. I think it was Fortino that helped me at that time. But when the job came open, I had such a positive view of how nice those folks at TVWD were. That's one of the reasons that I initially was interested. So, been a lifelong customer and recent employee. So super happy with everything.
Marvelous, marvelous. And then also, I didn't get to say anything to Pete while he was there, but you know, we really recognize the impact of the field staff on the success of TVWD, especially during these challenging, just a little storm, just 6 hours of wind. And it really had a huge impact on the district. And, you know, we're really grateful, and please express my gratitude and probably the gratitude of the whole board to your field staff, because we know that's not been an easy 5 days for those folks.
I appreciate that, and I'll share that with the team. And yeah, they do an amazing job, and the dedication is palpable. I mean, nobody wants to go home. We have to send folks home and say, look, you've been on for 16 hours. You need to go get some sleep, and nobody wants to go home. So everybody's dedicated to serve.
Well, and I hope Andrew's house is okay. I hope a tree didn't land on his home. As I know, we probably all have friends and know people who have had trees land on their house over the last couple days. All right, next item up is our commissioner communications and reports of meetings attended. And we'll begin this evening with Commissioner Doan. Commissioner Doan?
Hi.
Hi.
Meetings attended. I had discussion with Paul about upcoming events, and then just the regular stuff. Attended the work session that didn't happen, and the joint water commission and the Barney commission. We had an odd meeting, sort of virtual and I guess some in place. I wasn't there, but I joined from our boardroom, and you know, it was just the usual run of the mill stuff. Nothing. The wind event and the ice event was yet to come, so everything was pretty steady state when we met, and then, you know, everything got tossed in a hat, and the district did a very good job. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Doan. Commissioner Duggan.
For me, last week on January 9th, I attended the Washington County CPO #1 meeting, where our Justin Dyke presented our TVWD update, and he did a great job again explaining the water line flushing program and other district things, including questions about fluoridation pause. At that meeting, also the main agenda item was presentation by Washington County regarding their MSTIP projects and their planned work for the coming years. And then finally, there was a presentation by David Evans Associates about the development of the Peter Court property by the Sunset Transit Center. On Wednesday night, January 10th, I attended the Regional Water Providers Consortium Executive Committee, where we received staff updates and the budget work that staff is doing. They're looking at a 7% dues increase. It's pretty much not a whole lot of new initiatives, just staying the course, but with everything going on at the City of Portland, they anticipate that the dues are going to go up 7%. And most of the executive committee members, as myself, were not shocked by that 7% increase, just as a hold the course type thing. And we're glad it wasn't higher in terms of the proposed dues increase. And then I have tonight's meeting, and that's it to report for January.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Duggan. Commissioner Fisher?
On the 8th, I attended the Washington County Public Affairs Forum, and they were getting a presentation by Washington County Behavioral Health to hear about what they're working on in the community. Then on the 9th, I had our agenda planning meeting. On the 11th, I attended a Zoom meeting with Congresswoman Andrea Salinas to hear updates about what's going on in Washington, D.C. And then on the 16th, I met with participated in the Washington County Westside Economic Alliance Government Affairs Committee, where we heard from various government affairs folks who are attached to local governments and other industries about what their plans are for their outreach in 2024 during the short session, and a couple of them shared with their federal delegation lobbying plans. And then tonight's meeting.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Lysick?
I attended the Barney and JWC meeting on the 12th, and then tonight's meeting.
Fantastic. Thank you, Commissioner Lysick. And for myself, much like Commissioner Doan said, pretty run-of-the-mill things. Our tonight's meeting, the Barney JWC, which you've heard several people mention now, a couple meetings with Paul, because he's gracious enough to meet with me every 2 weeks to talk about things, and then the board agenda setting meeting that we have the week before this meeting comes in. So that's it for me. It was a quiet holiday season. And with that, we can move on to our next agenda item this evening, which is our public comment. Public comment time is set aside for persons wishing to address the board on items on the consent agenda and matters not on the agenda. Additional public comment will be invited on agenda items as they are presented. Sam, do we have any persons this evening who would like to comment?
We do not.
Very good. In that case, then we will move to agenda item number 1 this evening, which is approval of our consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered to be routine and may be enacted with one motion without separate discussion. Any board members may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. Any items requested to be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion will be considered immediately after the board has approved those items which do not require discussion. This evening, we are approving 2 items, the December 20th, 2023 regular meeting minutes, and we are to consider adopting the Tualatin Valley Water District investment policy. Do I have a motion and do I have a second to approve the consent agenda as presented?
This is Commissioner Duggan, so moved.
This is Jim Doan, second.
Thank you. Commissioner Doan moves and Commissioner Duggan moves and Commissioner Doan seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Not hearing any, the motion passes. Thank you, everyone. The next item this evening is our business agenda, where we will hear a presentation from Justin Carlton, our interim chief financial officer, on the annual adjustment of the SDC, the system development charges. Justin, are you ready?
I am. Thank you,
All right.
President Sanders, and good
Take
evening,
it away.
commissioners. So this is our annual update that we do for the system development charges. I wanted to get this out a little earlier, so the effective date in March, but we can go ahead and address it now. So quick overview of the process for adjustments and the history of the adjustments that we've done for our system development charges, and then we'll get into the proposed adjustments this year and provide some comparison information on that.
Hey, Justin, you might want to take control so you can forward the slides.
Oh, I apologize, but I have.
Thanks.
Okay. Are we on the overview slide for everybody?
Yes.
Thank you. So the ordinance that allows us to adjust annually is Ordinance 0112 that was enacted by the board on August 17th, 2012. It does require us to do an adjustment annually. The basis of that adjustment is the Engineering News Records Construction Cost Index for Seattle. It does allow us to change that if something more local becomes available, but at this time we still use the ENR index for Seattle, and it does comply with Oregon law as it relates to developing system development charges. You can see historically kind of where adjustments have been trending since 2012. The current year's proposed adjustment is an increase of 0.39%. That was the change between December of 2023 from December of 2022. For the 4 meter sizes that we have standard rates on, you can see the various increases. So for our most common meter, our 5/8 by 3/4 inch, we're seeing an increase of $38 for that charge. And for the meters that are larger than 1.5 inch, we use a equivalent residential unit rate of 9,754 broken into the various components. So you can see that the $38 charge increase per ERU, and the formula is used to calculate the number of ERUs required for any service line that's greater than 1.5 inches. This is where we're currently comparing, as well as the proposed adjustment to other water providers in the region. So still kind of in the middle of the pack there. And as a comparison to the other system development charges that either developer or customer would incur for a unit in our district, you can see some of the comparisons. So we're proposing for water, sanitary sewer, stormwater, transportation development tax, and then the parks and recs. So total amount of necessary of system development charges for a new dwelling. And staff recommends that the board adopt Resolution 224, a resolution amending system development charges for the Tualatin Valley Water District and declaring an effective date. And I would be happy to take any questions or comments at that time.
All right, Justin, not hearing any. Does anyone have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution 2-24, amending the system development charges for the Tualatin Valley Water District and declaring an effective date?
This is Jim Doan. So moved.
This is Isaac.
All right. Commissioner Doan has moved and Commissioner Lysick has second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Not hearing any. The motion passes. Thank you, Justin. You have successfully passed Resolution 02-24. Woo!
Thank you,
All right.
commissioners.
With that, then, that seems to be the last item on our agenda this evening. I'll just check to see if there's anything else that we missed before we adjourn and gavel out.
No, President Sanders, that was it.
Fantastic. If that's the case, then this meeting is adjourned, and I wish everybody safety, power, heat, and most of all, if you don't need to drive yet, just don't. I know it seems like things are getting better, but every time we go outside, we realize that just unless you really have an emergency, just stay off the roads for now.
I mean, I went out at 3 o'clock today and my driveway was an ice rink.
Yeah. And that's just it. There's water on top of ice. So coefficient of friction, as every engineer on this meeting would tell you, it's just about 0. All right. That being said, that'll be it for tonight, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being flexible. I think this was the way to go tonight. And I appreciate Sam's help in getting this set up this evening. So thank you, everybody.
Definitely.
Thank you,
Thank you.
commissioners.
Good night.
All right.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
everybody.
Take care. Thank you.
Okay.